What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Untamed Outdoorsmen. Today we are back once again on the Native Watercraft Hammer 12.10 build series for our friend Carl. And today we are back installing the YakPower 8-button power switching system. So we have installed this a number of times on the channel. The best one that we've done was the one on the Titan X 12.5, which is similar to this kayak, but it's got a lot more like neatness features to this one. But we installed this YakPower 8-button system on our Titan X about 2 years ago, and it has been completely flawless. Not a single issue. We did do some improvements to the YakPower system, which we will be doing to this one to help it out long term. But the YakPower 8-button system on the Titan X 12.5 has been completely flawless. So we are adding it to this one. This is the same exact system as the one on the Titan X 12.5. I don't think they've changed anything on this, and it is awesome. So I already kind of took it out of the box a little bit. Sorry about that. But so you have your power connection, which we'll get a little more into this in a second here. But we have our YakPower head unit, which will go actually right in the middle power link plate here, because we're not going to be using this for anything else. So it'll go in the middle power link plate. And then we have all of our switches that we can use. So we have our nav one, we have our anchor one, we have our bow, mid, and stern ones, and we have our options 1, 2, and 3. So we got quite a bit of cool stuff here. It's also through this like water weatherproof barrier here, this rubberized thing here, so that's pretty cool. It does take a 20 amp fuse, and this can actually hook up to a app on our phones to be able to use the switching system as well, which is always pretty cool. Especially if the system is far away, you can actually use your phone and switch from there, which is very, very cool. So yeah, that's awesome. We have our YakPower battery terminal connector kit. So I'm going to get on YakPower's case a little bit for this one, because I am absolutely floored that this is not in the box with the YakPower 8-button system to begin with, because you cannot power up the system without this. So how this works is it essentially comes off of our power lead and plugs into this, and then this is what goes to the battery. So you need this and the fuse on here in order to connect to the battery. So I'm a little confused on that, but we have it here. I'll leave a link in the description for this, obviously. But this is the battery terminal connector kit, and we are going to be making a small modification to this to help this out long-term and prevent some long-term issues. So that's awesome. These two things are obviously what we need. We have a few miscellaneous YakPower wires here. I got these off of old kayaks. The Ascend was one of these I got these off of. We're going to use this for a specific reason. We'll get a little more into that. It's just a cleanliness thing. So you don't necessarily need more of these for actually getting it mounted to the kayak. But for this particular install, it's actually going to help it out quite a bit. So that'll be cool. And then we have something that's pretty cool. We have a Hammer computer plate. So it actually wrote it out engraved on there, Hammer computer plate. So this is what we're actually going to mount the YakPower system to. It's actually a pretty thick piece of plastic there. It's actually no joke. It's about as thick as the bow motor plates from Native. It's about that same thickness. So it's definitely pretty thick. But this is what we're going to mount our YakPower system to, and this is what we're going to mount our GLS-10 black box to. That's not going to be this video, but we'll be adding it to this down the road. So very cool. But okay, so now that we got it all unboxed and we took a look, we're going to actually begin the install. Should be pretty simple. Okay, so we're going to open this guy up, and as you can see, pretty similar to the Titan X 12.5 in this way. Couple little quirk improvements, but overall very similar. So what we have to do first is we have to mount our Native Hammer computer plate to the hull. So I'm going to actually take that out of the box right now. So it doesn't appear to include any hardware, which I actually believe is by design. So how this is going to work is it's going to quite literally just sit in there. So let's get this guy mounted up. I think they designed the hull to actually fit this thing perfectly. Yep, that's exactly what it's supposed to do. So it's actually designed to fit in there with no hardware. They designed that on purpose to rest on this lip. They actually designed the thickness for that. So it's already mounted up in there. So that's super easy, ready to go. Let me get a light in there to show you guys a little bit closer. So you can kind of see it in there. Pretty tight fit in there, pretty snug. They designed that on purpose so you did not need hardware. And it looks to have turned out perfect. So just like that. So now it's completely flush, completely level, and that's not going to move unless you physically want it out. So that's great. It's going to be nice and tight in there, and that's good to go. I'll probably play with that for a little bit and make sure we're 100% comfortable with that spot, but otherwise we're good to go. So let's get after it. Okay, so I have the light in there just so you guys can see what I'm doing, but just for reference, so I'm going to mount it pretty much like right there. It doesn't have to be perfectly rocket science, but I am going to take a level to make sure we're good in that regard. But yeah, and we don't have to worry about, on our kayak, we had to go like over this. We don't have to worry about that because we have this power link plate here. So this power cable and fuse are just going to go right around and up. So cool. Okay, so I have the YakPower system on our computer plate, and I'm going to mount it on the starboard side of the kayak, and I'm going to mount it in the upper 75%. You don't want to mount it all the way up here because this will come in contact with the hull, so you want to give it a little bit of space. So I'm going to mount it like here. So it's, you know, closer to the top than it is the bottom, but it's in the middle area. So what I'm going to do, I have a number 2 Phillips screwdriver here. And this might not be a terrible time to confirm that it is working. Just take your positive and negative and just confirm it. But I already did that off camera. So I'm just going to use hand tools here and take my time and work it into the plastic. You don't want to use power tools if you can avoid it on kayaks unless you're drilling holes. There's really no need for that. So I'm just going to patiently kind of work it into the plastic. All right, good. So that's one corner. Okay, so I'm just going to get this guy secured. I'm going to get the one screw secured. Then I'm going to go to the opposite corner and secure that one down. The key is you don't want to over tighten anything. I'm going to grab the other corner. Make sure it's obviously even. Okay, so that's 2. So that's perfectly even from the bare naked eye on both corners. Now I'm just going to do the other 2 corners, which will go in nice and easy. And then we will mount this thing back up. Tell you what, I really like this computer plate. It's a nice beefy plastic. It's no joke. But okay, so we got this physically mounted up. Let's put it back in the kayak. All right, so we got this thing squared away. I am going to unplug the head unit so that way we can plug that in later. So I'm just going to put this guy right back in. Okay, so that is good to go. Like I said, that's a very tight squeeze. Like there's no way that's coming out on its own. Like you have to physically want to get it out. So I'm not concerned there at all. So the next thing that we have to do is we have to actually drill a 3/4 inch hole, I believe, into our power link plate here. And we did that for a very specific reason. So let's get to that. Okay, so we need to drill a 3/4 inch hole right into this power link plate. And I'm going to do it on the side towards the bow. The reason that we're doing this is because we are going to install one of these YakPower extenders and these through holes right here. So this is not included in the kit. This actually came off one of my old boats, but it's perfect for this application because it allows us to drill through this and mount the part that sticks through the hull. And that's going to serve as the connection to our battery terminal connector kit, which will go right to the battery. So it just makes for a little bit cleaner of an install. You don't need that if you don't want it, but we have it, so we're going to take advantage of it. And we are going to begin. But 3/4 inch hole. Okay. Actually worked out pretty good. All right, this drill's not super powerful, but it'll do. Okay, so we have our 3/4 inch hole drilled. And this is just a little trick that we're doing, but this is going to allow us to just mount this guy straight up, just like that. So it's going to make for a much cleaner install right from the get-go. It's not included in the packaging, but we're doing it on this install because we can. Okay. So that is physically mounted So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo this power link plate, and I'm going to silicone the back side of that because we don't want any risk of water or any moisture or anything. So we're just going to silicone the back of this just because it's so easy to access back here. So we'll do that quick. Now just a little bit of silicone on the back side. Okay, so one little tip, and I've mentioned this before in other videos. If you got to work silicone in with your fingers, wet your fingers and the silicone won't stick to you. Need some spit on my finger. Just work this in. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give that a whole day to dry. I'll just give that the full 24 hours. Just let it dry all the way. Just so we can have an easy to work on surface tomorrow. So that'll be good. So yeah, we'll give this the day. It's getting late, so we'll be back. All right, everybody. So it's a few days later from the time you guys just saw the last clip. We'll do a little bit of a recap right now. So we have the YakPower 8-button system mounted onto the native Watercraft hammer computer plate down here. And I'll show you guys a close look right now. So the hammer computer plate is mounted right down there. I will admit, the hammer computer plate is a super nice piece that they have there. It's not a flimsy piece of plastic by any means. So it's definitely a nice little piece there. But we got our 8-button system mounted up. This is screwed into the plate and it's not coming out at all. We have our connection for the main head unit. We have our power connection, which we're going to hook up in a second here. But this is all mounted to the plate with stainless steel screws. And we also have, and I'll show you guys a closer look, we also have this connector here. So like I said in the video, this connector is not included with the YakPower system. We have a ton of excess YakPower accessories in our attic in this garage here through previous kayaks across the years. We have plenty of them extra, and we actually had an extra through-hole connector kit. So what this is going to do is this is going to serve as a cleaner install to our battery, which will be right here. So I think that's a really great idea. I'm a fan of this. It's going to improve the cleanliness of it quite a bit, especially when we use this guy, the battery terminal connector kit, which again, I'm floored that YakPower does not include this with the YakPower 8-button system because you need it to power it. But so we're going to take this thing and we're going to get started. We're going to do some minor improvements to this as well. So now when we hook up our battery, it's going to just plug right into this guy and then it'll go right to the battery. So nice and simple, nice and clean. This will work really good. So one thing we are going to do is we are going to improve on this battery terminal connector kit a little bit. We've installed this exact kit a ton of different times on this channel. And we have found a way to improve this battery terminal kit so you don't have any long-term issues. So I understand why YakPower does this, but it is an issue that you need to be aware of. So YakPower designed these connectors here, your positive ring terminal and your negative terminal, to accommodate different battery types. So these ring terminals are actually removable, so they can accommodate batteries with the push-on style connectors. You can accommodate those type of batteries, and you can accommodate ring terminal batteries. What we find is after about a year or so, these connections become super loose inside of the push-on connector. You can replace the push-on connector, but in our circumstance, we're actually going to be replacing these with crimped-on ring terminals, heat shrink ring terminals. We're going to be replacing them with those because I just think this connector will never see push-on batteries, at least on this build. And if we can replace these with something that we know is not going to create any issues and will be a watertight seal, I'm going to take that opportunity every day of the week. So I am going to replace these with our 14-16 gauge 5/16 ring terminals. So I'm going to go grab my crimper and my wire strippers and we'll be right back. Okay, so like I said in the video, we have our 14-16 gauge 5/16 ring terminal here. We have two of them. And we also have some 1/4-inch 3-to-1 marine rated heat shrink here. The reason I'm doing this is because it just looks a lot more aesthetically pleasing when you use heat shrink like this. This part you don't necessarily have to do if you have a heat shrink connector, but for aesthetic purposes, I'm going to double down. But again, if you have heat shrink connectors, you don't have to do that part. But I'm just going to cut these completely off. Cut. Cut. Perfect. Now I'm going to strip them. Plenty of videos online that teach you how to strip and crimp wires in case you don't know how. This will be a 40-minute long video if I do that, so we're going to skip that today. But so now I'm just going to take our optional heat shrink over this. Again, this is 1/4-inch heat shrink. And for these particular crimps, it is purely aesthetic that those are on there. But now we're going to take our 5/16 terminal, get this guy on. A little tip, I know a lot of people love to twist the wire. You don't actually need to do that, and it's actually somewhat frowned upon to do that. The reason being is because you're actually changing the diameter of the wire when you tighten it like that and twist it. It's not a huge deal. If you do it, it's most likely going to be fine, but if you want the best chance to get the best crimp, I actually recommend not doing that. So that's my thoughts on that. Okay, that's one crimp. Came out good. And always give your connectors a pull test. Pull as hard as you can. You want them to fail now. If they fail now, that's a good thing and you can fix it. If it fails out on the water, that's a problem. So always try to make it fail now. Okay, so now we are going to start shrinking our connectors down. So let's do that. I'm going to put our heat shrink over the positives since that one has had a second to cool down. Although the red and black heat shrink that we just put on is aesthetic, heat shrink is multi-purpose. So yes, it does help with water and moisture and things like that, but heat shrink also doubles as strain relief. So if you're making a really tight turn or a difficult bend with your wire, it may help you to put a little bit of heat shrink on there. So, heat shrink, again, it does help for water, but it is also a strain relief device. So that's a really good tip. So we got our battery here. Like I said, this is a 100 amp hour Li-Time extra mini battery. Gonna fit in here nice. Okay, so we are very close here on this section of the build, but one thing I am going to do very quickly is I am going to actually extend our negative about 3 inches or so. We just have some extra 14 gauge tin copper wire here. Not a big deal. We'll get this sorted out pretty quickly. So no big deal. Just so we have plenty of slack and we're not overstressing our wire to try to get to this negative post. Not a huge deal at all. So thankfully, this is why I always have a bunch of extra wire lying around in various different sizes, just in case you ever need it for whatever reason. So we got a heat shrink butt connector here, properly crimped with a heat shrink rated crimper. And then we're just going to double down with our aesthetic heat shrink, just so it looks a little bit cleaner. Pull test. Good. I think my heat gun's going out. All right, so obviously when you tighten them down, make sure you give them a good wiggle test, make sure they don't move. And we are almost done wiring wise, but we have one more little trick that we're gonna do. So I'm going to grab our connection that comes off our power link plate here, which is right here. And one thing that I am going to do is hit our connection here with some dielectric grease. So the reason that I'm hitting it with dielectric grease on this particular install is because we have found through long-term use with YakPower products is these connections get pretty crusty after about 1 to 2 seasons of use. They still work, but they do get pretty crusty, which is never a good thing to have on wiring. So I'm going to hit them with a little bit of dielectric grease on the contacts. It's just a good little health thing to do for your connections. That's exactly what we're going to do. Doesn't have to be a lot, just a little bit. I'm going to do it on both sides. And this connection will probably not be removed very often at all, so I'm not worried about like contacting anything or anything like that. So, yep, we're good. Just like that. And that's going to go right down there. So, okay, we are good to go in terms of setting it up, getting the battery to the computer. And now we have to set up our head unit to actually use it. So we're going to be installing our main head unit into this center power link plate here. You know, definitely use your best judgment. I know a lot of installs may not work having this here, especially if you run devices on your captain's bridge or anything like that, or you run your plotters on these tracks up here. But in our installation, we're going to be installing our graph and our live scope on the port side, sort of halfway down the kayak. So this power link plate would otherwise not be used, but of course, use your best judgment. I am going to give a rough mock-up. You want to get it obviously as close to the middle as you humanly can. I'm actually going to take that power link plate out. Might make our life a little bit easier. You do want to be mindful of your drill holes. So you'll notice, if I can get the camera close to it, you'll notice that the power cable is off center to the YakPower panel here. So you want to be mindful of that. But there's no way you're going to get it 100% perfect here. So you kind of have to just use your best judgment, unfortunately. Not the super end of the world, but we're going to have to make it work. We're going to have to make do. So slightly off to the side in the dead middle. Just like that. So I have two drill bits here. I have a small drill bit just for drilling a pilot hole. And then we're going to follow up with our bigger drill bit. So at this point, you can probably put it back in. Get this guy drilled. Okay, just gonna feed the power wire through. Yeah, I mean, that looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. I am going to get our panel wire to the bow, and now I'm going to just work on keeping this nice and even and mounting it up. So I'm gonna put the screws back in for the power link plate. We are going to take them right back out because we do have some things to do, but one thing at a time. I'd say that's pretty good. I'm just going to take our punch. Yep. Okay, good. Go back to our tiny drill bit and drill those pilot holes. This is a 1/16 inch drill bit, in case anybody's curious. The YakPower does come with screws to mount the main computer to whatever you desire. I like the fact that we went with stainless screws. I just think it looks a little bit better. So do whatever you want. Do whatever you think works best. So now I took the power plate back out. And now we're actually going to silicone behind the power link plate. So obviously this is going to be a heavy rain environment. So definitely want to make sure you do this. I'm sure we'll give that a little bit of time to dry, but I think that is just about it for the install of the YakPower unit itself. Okay, so one extra thing that I am doing to kind of go above and beyond on the looks factor, we are going to add something called saddle clamps. So these are adhesive backed with 3M adhesive. You can stick them all across the wall of your kayak and they come with zip ties. You can use them for cable management and cleaning up your wiring a little bit. So we're going to do that here just a little bit. It doesn't have to be, you know, rocket science or anything, but just something that slightly improves the looks factor when you look down into the kayak. So we're going to do that right now. You just peel back the adhesive and you stick it. That's simple. So I think we are at the end of the install here. So yeah, let's do a quick rundown of how this looks on the kayak. Okay, so we're going to give you a quick rundown here. So we'll go from the battery and work our way down. So we have our battery here. So this is a 12 volt, 100 amp hour extra mini lead time battery. And it fits extremely well in this bow hatch area. We got it nice and tightened down with our strap here, which is tied to the kayak, which is nice. We have our connector area here. So we had to use the battery terminal connector kit, which is not included in the YakPower system out of the box. So what we had to do is we ran this coming through the power link plate, coming up to our positive side, and then we had to run a small extension here going to our negative. The only reason we ran the small extension because I wanted to make sure we had enough slack on the cable so it wasn't straining this plug here. But this came out really good. We did change out the ring terminals here for heat shrink terminals, and we also added some heat shrink for aesthetic purposes right here as well to clean up this install really well. We have this through-hole plug here, which is not included in the YakPower system. We had this laying around due to previous builds. So this can go through the hull without the need for having the wires come up through here. I think this just leaves a cleaner look for the hull. So that's super nice. Down here, it comes around here to the top of our computer. And we have our cable right here is for our head unit. And then obviously we have our computer plate here. So this is eventually going to hold our GLS-10 black box right here. But so far this came out really good. We have our computer plate on the starboard side here. We have our future GLS-10 black box location here. And I really like this computer plate. I think that's a really nice piece of equipment that they offer. And I'm a fan of it. You can always make your own too if you decide to do that. But over here we have our panel. So as you can see, turns on. All the buttons work. So that came out really great as well. And we silicone the back of that as well as the back of this plate here just to prevent any future water risk from happening. So yeah, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. Let's do a quick outro. Okay, everybody. So that is going to do it on the YakPower 8-button system installation on this Native Watercraft Hammer 12.10 for my friend Carl. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. A little bit easier compared to our Kill Guard video. That one was a little bit more of a challenge, but we managed to get that one done, and we got this one done as well. I think this came out really clean, and like I said earlier in the video, this is just going to lay the groundwork for future mods down the road. For example, our navigation lights, our live scope black box, our graph. We can't do any of that nearly as cleanly without this YakPower 8-button system. And we have used this system numerous times on the channel, and we love it on this channel. So hope you guys really enjoyed this video. I think it came out really well. In terms of the next episode of the build series, the next episode is going to be navigation lights. So making our kayak legal in terms of lighting is going to be the priority for the next build series upload. So that will be an easier one as well. But the final 2 episodes are gearing up to be much longer. So the next episode will be navigation lights. We're going to install them on the lid here, just like we did my Titan X 12.5. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys sticking around, and we'll see you guys in the next one. So thank you.